Hey there. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about what we're doing here at Listen Community Consulting. So I'm just going to walk you through some slides and hopefully this will help. So as a short introduction, I'm Sarah Jane Morris, and you can call me SJ. I am the founder, proprietor, principal consultant, and all the things at Listen Community Consulting. I have spent the last 15 years focused on communities, and I have spent the last 8 years solely focused on developer communities. And I've worked with some pretty amazing companies, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. I launched Listen in 2019, early this year, to really help explore the ways that I could contribute to building more inclusive, welcoming, and diverse developer communities. And that's my cat. She's going to be a part of this demo. And let's talk a little bit about some of the communities I've worked with. I worked with Mashry back in 2012. They got acquired by Intel. So I've had a great time learning all kinds of things about API management, best practices with an amazing team there. Through the ABFF slide there, our logo in there to showcase some of the brands I've worked with to build out corporate hackathons. They have a beer tasting API that we use to host a really fun hackathon over in London. And there are several other similar brands that I just wanted to include one to just give you a flavor of the kinds of work that I've done with corporate clients. I worked at Keen.io, a custom analytics API, and worked with a really amazing team there. And then finally, the last role I took was at Shopify, leading their developer community initiatives for the last 2 years until December of 2018. And I really was proud of the amazing work that I was able to do there, building out a lot of their inclusion and diversity programs on the developer community side, including a scholarship fund for our annual developer conference, Unite, and as well as helping to launch and execute on a North American tour of our developer program at multiple conferences. So great times had by all at Shopify. So let's talk about my mission. My goal really is a big one, but I'm going to do my part in helping the tech community to create better, more inclusive products because the developers that are building them are feeling equipped, inspired, and welcome in their communities where they're building. And if we diversify developer communities, we're going to increase the number of perspectives that are influencing our tech products that folks depend on these days and are actually making our world a better place. So let's jump into my areas of focus. So obviously I called my company Listen for a reason. It's crucial to me to be able to listen to and react to input that your developer community is giving you, what the industry is saying, and then being able to create a strategy based on that. So for essentially all of my client work, I like to start with a research phase. I can help build out a fully comprehensive survey that looks at things like, demographics, tech skills, understanding, where folks prefer to sit in the stack in your community, what their skill level is, how they feel about your community, how much they want to participate in your community, both online and offline, and understanding what frameworks, developer tools, libraries and SDKs they are working with and they feel are missing. And then from there, I also like to include some deep dive interviews, both with your super users and some noobs on your community, as well as talking to some folks who have never used it before to really get a sense of their sentiment and their initial feelings of welcomeness or lack thereof when approaching your community. We start with that. From there, we do some very initial high-level inclusion work. So we look at whether or not your community has an active code of conduct. And if so, is there an enforcement guide that folks have been trained up on? We look at doing an inclusion and accessibility audit for your website and your docs, making sure that they're following industry best practices in those areas, and getting a little feedback from some of the folks that we talked to who've never used your APIs and tools before to see how they felt about it. And we can also wrap that up with some allyship training for the internal team working on your community to make sure that they know how to showcase underrepresented folks and support them as needed in your community so they can really truly thrive and create awesome products. Event strategy has truly been one of my areas of strongest expertise in the last 8 years. At Mastery, I think I helped coordinate, organize, sponsor, and plan over 200 hackathons. Again, as I mentioned, I helped work on one of the biggest developer conferences in e-commerce, which was Shopify's Unite, for the last 2 years, as well as building our entire developer conference strategy at Shopify. And I also helped I've been all over the place with events. At Keen, I helped us host 30 meetups internally, both focused on really high-value developer talks, as well as inclusion and diversity talks for developers. That was going to really help them upskill and learn more, and be able to take tangible diversity and inclusion initiatives back to their workplace. So part of the work that I do includes brainstorming on your team's capacity to be at events, and then from there, building out a meetup strategy. So whether that be to launch your own series of meetups, sponsor existing meetups, speak at meetups. Meetups are still, to me, a fantastic way to really do that grassroots community building that developers respond so well to. And if you have some quality stuff to demo, like that just goes such far away. Can help support a speaking opportunity strategy, as well as planning your CFP submission. So those are your call for paper submissions, which is a funny way of saying basically you're applying to speak at a conference. And finally, if you're interested in doing any conference sponsorship, I can help you put together a calendar of conferences and activation levels for sponsorships that make the most sense for your company. Oftentimes these conferences will lure you into buying a booth that has really minimal impact. And if you can negotiate a workshop, you can negotiate some sort of, FaceTime beforehand, then you'll get a lot more bang for your buck. So I can help you do that. Content strategy is another area that I can help support. Very similarly to event strategy, we will do a content audit to look at your existing developer content to see if it's really truly adding value and if it's inclusive and friendly. We'll do a content brainstorm session and talk more about what your team's capacity is for content creation, how we can source out content creation, what kind of areas of expertise your team has already, and sort of leverage those. And then we'll create some content pillars to focus on. From there, I will help you put together a 12-month editorial calendar that will weave in your product roadmap and allow some room for flexibility, because we all know product roadmaps are subject to change, and include some of those event milestones, which is why I like to do a content strategy after an event strategy, because it really helps inform the content strategy. If you're going to be at a specific meetup or event, the content that you're creating for it can be used both online and offline, and there's just really, really solid ways of weaving those two together to have the most value for your team and the most value for developers that are consuming your content. I'll also help you with some supportive feedback on your developer tools and frameworks. So what's missing based on the survey, what's out there, what you should be prioritizing in terms of new SDKs and libraries. We'll be able to identify which of your docs need the most work and how we can help fix those, sort of identify that lowest hanging fruit. And then we can do a high-level DX audit. So I've seen so many different APIs in my time that I kind of have a good idea of what some of the basics are for making sure that your API documentation and onboarding experience is as welcoming as possible. And I also have strong relationships with some really focused API developers that can help supplement that side of things as well. And then open source. We can do an analysis if this is applicable for your initiatives of your existing open source strategies, see if there's any opportunities for new ones, see how we can generate more contributions for more folks, and just take a closer look there at the opportunities. So here's my sort of general speaking timeline. In the first month or so of a 4-month approximately kickoff initiative, we go through diagnostics. So We do a deep dive on your existing, health metrics and KPIs. And we actually reframe those to see if they make sense for what's realistic for your community. Oftentimes, marketers will be hopeful that the developer community will output, stronger ROI in the short term than what's realistic. So I've seen enough of what to measure over time to be able to help make sure that we're building attainable and audacious but realistic goals. And then we also do a community mapping exercise that helps to sort of look at this incremental effort that we can put towards achieving larger milestones. From there, we go into the research phase. So building out a survey, if this is something that we want to focus on. I am also happy to help build out a response strategy. So I know that surveys do have a typically low response rate, but we can work on a number of different initiatives to ensure that we get that response rate up and we get at least as close to a statistically valid data set as possible. I will help you undertake those one-to-one developer interviews and really gather some of that valuable anecdotal data. The survey will be in field for 2 weeks to a month, depending on the survey sort of structure that we put together. And then from there, I will help produce a really detailed report and analysis of your existing community so we have a super strong baseline to measure against once we've put together our initiatives and put them in place down the road. And then from there, we move right into the strategy and tactical planning. So based on the research outcomes, we'll put together an inclusion audit, have some workshops internally for your team to help support those, build out a custom event strategy and that custom content strategy, including open source frameworks, all of that developer goodness, and really give you in-hand tactical materials and actions to work on some really, really, really like tangible developer community improvements that you can really see and feel, and start to really gather that positive feedback, hopefully, from your developer community. And then from there on, I'm available on a retainer basis. So if I'm proposing a content calendar to you and you don't have folks to execute on that content, I can help support that. I've done a ton of content in my time, and I am happy to send you some samples of my work. Same with the event strategy. If you don't have folks available to be on site to make sure conference goes well, I'm happy to support that for your team. So, there's execution, there's the actual strategy itself, and then there's the overseeing of the execution that I can help support. That is all I really wanted to share with you today. As I want to make sure that folks know that progress reports and monthly touch points are always included in the work that I do, no matter what level of engagement you come in with, and all of the different areas that I talked about can be approached separately. I do find a significant amount more impact when we do some form of research baseline before we move into the strategic execution part of the strategy. But if there is an overwhelming need at this point for event support, if you really need content and you know the areas that you want to focus on right away, of course I'm available to help support that. And so if you have any next steps, feel free to either reach out to me by email at sj@listen.community. Definitely hit me up on Twitter at Sarah J. Horace and at ListenCom, and I look forward to chatting with you more. Have a great day.